Hey there, welcome in to the Breakthrough Creative. Come on in, come on in. This is the place where we talk about the business of art and the art of business. And I am your host, John McDavitt. And I am pleased to bring you this week my guest, Emilie Procsal. Emilie began her life as a fine artist, found herself working in product development at a company where we first crossed paths, she and I. And she developed all kinds of wonderful skills there pertaining to product, but also pertaining to art. She began to develop her graphic design skills, her business skills in working with factories and companies overseas, and just so many wonderful things. And at some point, she decided she needed to do something different. And after some real soul searching, she fell in love with the camera. She fell in love with the camera, and it fell in love with her. And they have been working together ever since. And we're going to get into her story in just a moment. But first, I wanted to ask you, would you please subscribe to the Breakthrough Creative? And after you subscribe to it, would you please think about a friend in your life, an artist, who might need to hear some of this stuff about the business of art and the art of business, something that would be beneficial to them. Because my goal is to help artists out there make a living. And if you did not watch or listen to last week's episode, I had an episode that is called episode 47. I didn't name it 47, that was just where it was, but it's using your creative skills to solve clients' problems. And I walk you through my process of how I marry my particular skills to problems they can solve, and then try and find clients who are a match for those skill sets that solve their problems. And I have a downloadable worksheet. You can go to that episode and you can click on the link there after you watch it, or I'll have that link in the show notes of this episode as well. And you can click it there. And so I hope that is helpful to you. And so now back to the show, and I'm going to hand it off to myself and Emilie. And here we are. Here I am with my friend, Emilie Procsal. Hello, Emilie.
Hello.
Welcome to the Breakthrough Creative Show. I'm so glad you are here.
I am so happy to be here. Currently, I am primarily doing photography. So I am working on portraiture, family pictures. I do architectural. So I have been using my camera as a way to capture everything around me, and I love it.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
not like all you do, like your background, because we met
Yeah.
ages ago at a
Yes.
client's. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah, so tell
So,
us about that.
well, originally, and I kind of went everywhere with art, which is fun. I would just wanted to see what avenue it would take me. So, when I first started, I majored in fine arts. So, I was a painter and a drawer. And I thought, oh, I got to be an illustration major because that's the only way I'll make money. And so I majored in fine arts at NIU, and with a focus on drawing, and came out as a painter. I really never fully flushed it out there, but from there, I went into product development. So I ended up working at the Bradford Exchange in Niles. They pulled me out of NIU. I interviewed with them. It was quite a grueling process of interviews, but the coolest building. They had like plants and glass bridges, and it was just amazing. So I kind of started off in as an associate product developer. So I learned the land of creating products, and then from there I moved to Wilton Industries, where I got to meet you, and I became an in-house product developer with our mutual friend there. And I got to work on scrapbooking and then party, and so it kind of evolved there as the company. And then I was making baby products after I had my own children. So I just kept rolling out with the product development. And then I wanted to go back to my roots again. And so that kind of pulled me into, where do I go? What do I do? So I decided to start Scarlet Cardinal Studios and see where I was going to go. Was I going to go back into fine arts, or was I going to develop? And right then I fell into real estate photography. And it was just it was just eye opening. It was so fun for me to use the camera, and that kind of became my painting. It was just like, and it was easier because I could see, that image and then just snap it, and it just became like beautiful. That was it, and it was the ability to keep creating and keep creating. So that has moved into families and portraits, and that was due to COVID, actually, that it moved off into something different. So it just has snowballed into where I'm at now, and the different people that I've met. And I feel like I'm finally at a place where it feels like truly where I wanted to be, but it was quite the process to get here.
I'm wondering if you'll agree with this statement, that I feel like throughout my career, by the way, one of the first product development clients I had was Bradford Exchange.
Oh, no
Years and years and
way.
years ago, I answered an ad. They were looking for sculptors of little
Yeah.
figures,
Yeah.
and I never sculpted that small before. And I remember my contact there they would give you a paid test, and
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm working on these sculptures, and I'm working, and I remember the deadline is coming in. Like, I had a week to sculpt this thing, and
Okay.
I literally called my contact there and I said, "Hey, I am not going to offend your senses by
Yeah.
sending this image to you, but I think I can draw your stuff. Do you have a drawing test?" And she said, "Yeah, absolutely." And so I did that, and then I started working with them. And
They
so,
were such a cool creative group
yeah.
there. I loved it because I was in product development. There was a hole that went down, and you could literally look down into creative, and we used to call it the pit. So you'd look down and you'd be like, "Hey guys." They didn't like that very much, but it was cool. I used to go down there and just stare at what
Yeah.
everybody was doing. It was such a fun world. So
Yeah.
that's great. So we have been parallel for
Yeah,
a
you and
while.
I, we've it's been interesting just to the people that we know, some of the similar people, and then just bumping into each other.
Yeah.
But I guess what I was getting at was,
Yeah.
throughout my career, and as time goes by, I've landed in places that I never expected,
Yeah.
and then I pick up uh, tools along the way, whether they be creative
Yes.
tools or
Yes.
experiences, or just soft skills like learning how to work with people, and you kind of notice things. Has that been your
Yeah.
experience?
100%. I mean, I didn't know anything about Photoshop or Illustrator or anything when I went to Bradford. And I started realizing, with communicating overseas, I had to kind of pick up some of those things. So while I was there, I started self-teaching myself, how to do Photoshop, how to do Illustrator, how to grow on that. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this. So then, I started to that's how I started to develop more within that arena. And then, I became proficient at Illustrator and Photoshop, and now I'm functioning in Lightroom as, I picked up the camera. And I think real estate photography, I dabbled with photography, especially product development. I would take pictures for packaging. I would do product pictures and stuff like that. So I had a very loose idea, and I think as an artist, like, you have the eye, right? But it's just knowing how to use your paintbrush, or how to use whatever medium you're using. And so the camera, I got a good camera, and that was like, all right, this can do what I'm thinking. And once I got into that, I started taking a couple extra classes in photography and started moving towards that and seeing what I could do. And now I feel like I'm forever evolving and learning all of these things. But absolutely, there's, I don't feel like there's one way you can be an artist. I think that you can be an artist in a billion different ways, right?
Yeah, I
So
totally agree. Yeah.
it's kind of nice because when I was in product development, I never felt like I was utilizing a lot of my creativity. But the camera has brought that back for me.
So when did the
So,
camera become kind of your focal point?
it kind of, I think maybe for a lot of parents too, you have children and you're like, I have to capture this. And I didn't have time to capture it with a painting. Children aren't going to let me do that while I was stay at home. So I just bought a really quick point and shoot and was like, I'm going to take pictures of my babies whenever I can. And I'm going to be artistic and we're going to play with, different things. So I would say my interest in it started then. It didn't mean that I was good at it. It just meant I like this. Um, and then when I left my last job as a product developer, I was, had this opportunity to become a real estate photographer. So I jumped on it. I got all of the equipment that I needed to get. I got everything that I could in order to make it proficient and flow. And then I learned a lot. And it just has stemmed from there where I realized like, maybe I can do this. Maybe maybe this is a good outlet for me. And it feels now to me like I'm finally starting to get it. I'm finally starting to understand it. I still want to fix everything, but I don't know if you ever feel like you have fully flushed out yourself as an artist. You're always like, oh, that could be better, you know.
Every
But
artist I've spoken with, whether it's on video or I edit it out or we're just chatting,
yeah,
I think every artist I've spoken with has expressed that feeling.
yeah,
Like that's just a very
yeah.
common feeling.
I think I think you have to, right? I mean, if you're satisfied, you're never learning.
Right.
And if you're content with your artwork, you're never improving. So I think in a sense, you could like what you're doing, but I think maybe that's the artist brain, is you're always exploring. I remember taking a walk with my best friend when I was in junior high, and I would go like this, and I would mentally take pictures of things. And I remember I said, "When you look at that tree, what do you see?" And she said, "I see browns and reds and blues and pinks and oranges." And I said, "Me too." And then our other friend is going, "I see a tree. I don't know what you guys are talking about." And I think that's the difference with an artist. The two of us were artists and she
Yeah.
wasn't. And so um my whole life I always just walk around and I take a mental picture of things. And I think it kind of leading to this. I would try to paint it, but I wasn't as good.
Yeah, it's I think being an artist, and I would say it probably goes for any practice where you you are working to become not just proficient, but become excellent, right? Where we're shooting for some
Yeah.
kind of excellence, and
Yeah.
that's all like that target is all over the place for people because
Yeah.
what somebody's excellence is maybe not what you want to go after, right? and
Exactly.
but that doesn't mean it's not excellence that they're shooting for. It's just you're kind of going, I think this is the target I'm after. And I think it's
Right.
almost like being in a way it's like an athlete or
Yeah.
where you practice, athletes practice,
Yeah.
and we need to keep practicing and honing our skills because as soon as you stop, you start to lose a little bit of something.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. I think Yeah, there's just that drive, and I feel, at least for me, I may look at other artists and say, "Ooh, I like that," or "That's not my style, but I'm not sure what my style is." Or, you always try to kind of find your niche, but then once you get into it, you're like, "Oh, I'm kind of bored of that." I think I want to, let's mix it up a little bit and do something else. And then people are like, "But I like what you did." It's like, well, I don't care, And then
Yeah.
so I think you're kind of restless as an artist, and I think you set these goals in your head that you don't even know necessarily what they are. They're just some sort of perfection that's in there, but I think that's what keeps our creative brains, happy. So I think that that's what pushes us, in order to stay relevant, to keep creating. Our brains are just like, nope, we're still going. We're still going.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like to do that
Yeah.
too. I don't like to be bored. I mean, there's
Yes.
nothing's perfect, right? And when you're
Right.
working for clients, you might be working on a process or a technique that is like, but that's work too. That's part of the deal. Or if you're stretching a
Yes.
canvas, or if you're in Lightroom and you're like, I know this is an hour and a half of the same stuff, but that's
Right.
just part of the deal. But
Yes.
that's the discipline that helps make the creativity flourish.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you're like, ooh, that was gold, and then I want to do more of that. So, you get, I think just recreating the same thing is just cumbersome, you know? If it makes you a living, then wonderful,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
always good to keep even creating on the side.
yeah, totally.
So
So you
that's
had
kind of the
mentioned
fun
that
part.
you made this commitment to photography about a year ago, was it? A little more, maybe?
Yeah, it's a little over, it's about 2 years now that I've been
Okay,
doing photography, and, it's so funny, the way that COVID, I know, has brought a lot of terrible things. I, in fact, had COVID in June, and, got pretty sick, not hospital sick, but I had it, and I got it earlier, probably from doing real estate photography. You're kind of out there, and it slowed me down. Gave me the opportunity in general to look at my company and say, what do I want to do with this? And then, with our children not going back to school, we didn't have school pictures. And so I thought, I want to do that for people. I want to go around and take pictures of their kids. They're not going to have it this year. And even if I put up a cheesy background, but then I was like, well, they don't want me in their house. So let's do porch pics. And so I came up with this idea to just have people put their kids out on the porch, and I come take pictures, and everybody wear masks. And I just give them a nice picture that they could have for the year. And not have the kids wear masks, but just being safe and
yeah,
everything. And I wanted a nice picture to capture the moment. A lot of people I know like to just have the picture from the school, and they don't even do professional photography. And I still have mine from the 80s and the good old days. So um, that in turn, I started meeting new people. And these people wanted family pictures. So like, can you do it? I was like, yes. And I was going and just throwing it out there. Yes, I can do it. I'll do it. I'll do it for you. And they were happy, and it just kind of started to grow and develop, and I enjoyed it. It was like it's kind of like painting. Like, I put more hours into the development and the Lightroom and making it pretty and making it perfect for them, that I don't even know if it's a flush with money, but it was fun. And so I was like, maybe I could do something with this. Maybe I could get better at this and keep going and see what my niche is. What can I do that makes me me? And I'm an incredibly social person, and I think being with these children and being with these families, I felt like I was just capturing these moments that just, they meant so much to me. Even I love to do little tricks while I'm shooting families. I'll tell a joke to a kid and catch that moment when they're laughing, naturally. I love to tell couples to look at each other, and they can't do it. 9 times out of 10, they just start dying laughing. Or you'll see that couple that is so intensely in love with each other, they just they look at each other. Some will give each other a kiss, some will, and it'll just be that moment, because a lot of times in family for photography, they're doing it for their children, and you remind them, no, you created this, and they're like, oh yeah, I do love you. I think it's a good time to have a picture with you. So there's little moments that I like to do to try to get those things going. And another element is that I realized people are so insecure, so down on themselves. And so, I hate my forehead. I'm not thin enough. I'm not going to book with you until I lose 30 pounds. I don't like the way I feel. I don't like, and I feel like part of my job at this point is starting to turn into me being like, do you know how beautiful you are? And it just it's interesting to me to see the insecurities of people and really get to know what's going on in their head. And they hate it when the camera is pointed at them. Not many people like it. So as a photographer, I think that's a part of it too. uh, you really have to help them see how beautiful they are,
Yeah.
inside and out. And I try to capture that the best I can.
Yeah, that's really great stuff, because your craft isn't solely the technique and well,
Yeah.
I guess that's part of your technique is how you work with people. But I'm thinking
Yeah.
it's not the equipment, it's not the lights, like that's all important. But then there's there's the art part of it, right? The soul part of it.
Yes.
And really,
Yes.
you're not pointing the camera just at at the look of them. You're pointing the camera at their
Yeah.
relationships and at who they are.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. As a family, I've had it all. The bribing. If you just smile, I'll buy you whatever you want, and then it's so
That's usually
funny.
with a child, you use that one, right?
Yeah. Some adults I'll offer, a little liquid courage in order to make them happy. But yeah, I mean, it's I let the parents do the bribing. Some I give little treats at the end, to say you did a good job or whatever.
Yeah.
But I like to have the kids tell each other secrets and then see what their reactions are. And that always gets the best pictures, because you never know what the heck they're going to say, or if they understand. One kid just went like this, and the siblings listening, and they're like, he's not saying anything. He goes, oh, I thought you just wanted me to pretend. I was like, no, tell a secret. What's a secret? And he's like, ooh. So I have 1,000 pictures of, like, thinking about,
Yeah.
geez, what do I think about? And then like, I try to make it so it can just be natural,
Yeah.
and people don't feel like they have to be this rigid, you know, this is what I look good like. And it usually isn't what looks nice in the camera.
So is
It's
that
the parts
stuff
that they don't like.
I'll call those like soft skills, that stuff.
Yeah.
Is that something that you developed along with your actual craft of taking photos?
Yeah. I started to notice that I wasn't how I was thinking, like, how do I get more of a natural feel? I could pose people, but I also want to make it something where you can have an emotion to it.
Yeah.
I had an art teacher that told me, I think the best thing that I've always lived off of. And he said, the best art is the art that elicits emotion, whether it be negative or positive. You brought something out of somebody. if somebody is indifferent, then you did not do your job as an artist. And I think when people hire you to capture them as a family, I think it's also important to capture who they are. And the only way that you can do that is if you break that ice. You have to just let everybody shake it up and then just start getting into natural conversations. I'll start asking questions and trying to make them feel more comfortable with me, because it's part of the process. I'm there just to do, I'm going to capture them, but I have to get them when they're not remembering that I have a camera. So sometimes they're in the middle of talking and I just, put my camera up and take like a quick picture and they're like, oh, I didn't realize you were going to do that. And then they're laughing and I take another one, or,
So you have
so
to
I
sneak
try to just
attack.
catch them. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's really cool.
do.
So
Yeah.
when you made this commitment a couple of years ago, it sounds like somewhere in there you made a commitment that you're going to move more into photography, and then you said
Yeah.
you invested in equipment. Like
Yeah.
what kind of expense do you think that was?
Whew. A good camera, especially going for the wide angle lens when I started with real estate photography. You want to get a good camera because, it's just like, are you going to buy the plastic paint brushes? Or are you going to buy like that paintbrush you can use a million times? And I remember feeling like an artist is only as good as their tools. If you're a good artist, depending on, right? Like, yeah, you can create something great, but you've got to invest. So I bought, um, I had to get the proper tripod. I got the camera, the Nikon D750, that I think just the body of it was $900. And then the lens was somewhat near, I think it was like $1,400 just for the lens. And that's the wide angle lens. And then I got another really good point and shoot that was somewhere around $1,900. So it it gets steep, but if this becomes your career, you make that back,
Yeah.
pretty easily. But it's worth every cent that you have to make on it,
Can you
because
say that last statement again? It wasn't audible.
I said it was worth every penny that you
Yeah.
spend on it, because the you can get some great results with some lower end, but I think in this arena you have to have the right equipment. So for me, I like to shoot with natural light the most I can. um and I'll use flash in real estate, but in portraits I use natural, and then I'll play with it in Lightroom. So that kind of eliminates the big lighting and all that sort of stuff that I don't need.
Yeah.
But the iPhone is coming out with cameras on it that are just like blowing my mind now. So it's crazy.
It is.
It's
It is
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
So between the equipment, the camera equipment, your lights, even though you're trying to use natural lights, I think you've got some lighting equipment as well. Your
Hmm.
computer, your software.
Hmm.
I mean, you're probably into it for about 7 grand or so, right?
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, for sure. I mean, the computer is essential because the colors are
Right.
essential. You can't, it's not like you're painting where you have those colors right in front of you. You are, but you're on screen. So I'm a Mac person.
Yeah.
I have an iMac. I use this screen iMac. Um, I have the screen, no glare. Like, yeah, you
Yeah.
you have to put that investment in, and then of course the Adobe suite that you
Sure.
sign up for, and any plugins or any additional. I mean, it 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 goes crazy, but
Yeah.
it makes up for it, I think, as you go along, just slow investments.
Yeah.
So worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to invest
Yeah.
in your tools and your computers and all that. And then,
Yeah.
you start to output really cool things. And then you're somebody like you who is really masterful relationally, I would say, really good with people. And you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't like people.
No,
and
no,
that's clear
yeah,
that you're good at
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I've had some moments where, I photographed somebody's house where their husband passed and their children were grown and they were alone in this home.
Hmm.
And I got to photograph that. And as we were going through the pictures at the end, they were crying because they thought it was so beautiful and hugging me. And it was so emotional.
Hmm.
I mean, these pieces are extensions of people.
Yeah.
When you meet a child and this child likes you, the parent looks at you like, you know, it's all a relational thing. And so yes, I can't just sit in a studio all by myself. Like I need people.
Yeah.
So this has I've been through so many different situations, I think, um, using my camera, that it just feels good. It feels good to help people, to I don't know, it gives something different. So yes, it's relational for
Yeah.
me a lot of times.
Well,
Hmm.
and I would say in the era of the I begin to think more and more inappropriately titled social media,
Yeah,
people are more and more disconnected, and
very.
and
Yeah.
our entertainment is like, I like a good laugh, I like a good sitcom, I like a good joke,
Yeah.
but people don't really communicate well in sitcomese. But I've been with
Yeah.
people who that's kind of how they talk, right? and
Right, right.
and I can fall into that, and I'm much more interested in, how are you, what's going on in your life, what's up.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'll have people ask me, uh they'll either say I'm fine, and then uh they might not say a whole lot, and I'll say, well, but how are you? And they're like, wait, do you really want
Yeah.
to know? And
Yeah.
so I think what you're doing is you're capturing, um, the essence of relationships with people, is really what you're trying to get through in
Yes.
the image, and you can't do that without doing it relationally.
Yes. I think yeah, I think people need to get to know you and feel comfortable with you,
Yeah.
because just like you said, you can say, "How are you?" "I'm fine," you know. Well, really, are we fine? Because I could tell you 5,000 reasons why we're all not fine right now. So, it is something where, in just talking to people, sometimes people are so starved for other, you know, attention and talking with other people, that you'll be there for hours and just chatting. I'll put that camera down, and now it becomes a relationship. I'll and because we need it. And it, I think, in the world that we're in right now, because we can't hug each other, because the social media isn't filling what we need as human beings, I think that I'm hoping that it will make us talk to each other more. It will make us open up more. And I'm an open book. I will tell anybody anything, and it's probably one of my greatest things and one of my worst things, but I wear my heart on my sleeve. And so I think that's one thing I love with people, and hope that they get from me too, that when they are with me, that it becomes a relationship, that it becomes a friendship.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
it's
and I
it's kind
think
of a
it's
nice thing.
genuine too. What I
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
just what I've experienced with you over the years, just, we it's
uh,
not like we talk every day. It's kind of here and there,
no.
but
Yeah.
you're a warm person, and you care about what's going on at that moment between us, whether
Yes.
it's a project or whether we're chatting or whatever it is. And that's
Yes.
unusual. That's an unusual
Yeah.
quality.
Oh, thank you. And then
Yeah.
same with you. You've been a huge guidance for me. Us
Hmm.
meeting 2 years ago in a coffee house, that was just and just talking and being open, and it was very personable, and it was very, like, at first I was scared just to put myself out there and be like, okay, what do you know? And then immediately I felt comforted and warm, and like I had a direction, and you were
Hmm.
integral in that, and that was huge for me.
Hmm.
And I always looked up to you. I remember when I was at Wilton, I always said, "Can I be John McDavitt?" I always said that. How do I become John McDavitt? I mean, because your name is just chucked everywhere, and I went from different companies. Oh, I know him. Oh, I know him. And I was like, gosh, I just wish I was that person. And then once meeting with you, it was I've looked up to you as an artist, and I think
Hmm.
that meeting with you gave me inspiration to just continue along this path. So I
Wow.
have to thank you. Yeah.
Wow, that means a
Yeah.
lot. Thank you very much. That's really kind.
You're
And I
welcome.
had no idea. Like, we talked recently a little, but I didn't know. Yeah. And you've got
You
way too much
should.
hair to be John McDavitt. It's gonna have to come off. Don't do it. Don't do it.
With all
Yeah.
this stress nowadays, it may all just fall off
Yeah,
and I'll
you
become the
never
next
know.
John
Well, nobody will be
McDavid.
able to tell any bit apart. Um,
Yeah.
I was really fortunate, and I've spoken about my dad a bit before on the show, but he was an encourager, and even though, I mean, he was creative, and he was crafty, artsy crafty kind of guy, and he was interested in all this stuff, but he was a mechanic and a machine repairman, and he could
Oh,
only take me so far with the art,
yeah.
but he was always an
Yeah.
encourager, and
Yeah.
it was always, you can do this, you can do anything. And I've always believed that, even if I've
Yeah.
not felt it maybe in the moment. I'm like, okay, well, the sun's going to come up tomorrow and I can take another run at it. I'm good with that. But
Right.
I want that for other people, like, so that's
Yeah.
that's that's what I want when I meet with friends or
Oh,
artists in
you have
general.
that in you. You have that in you.
Yeah.
You're a true listener, and it was really, yeah, motivational. I mean, your work alone is like, ooh, I want to do that. But or
Mm.
that is cool. I was showing some friends, because they knew I was doing this. And I said,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to see this guy's work. And my children were freaking out, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, he's just so cool. So I'm not trying to stroke your ego, but I will tell you that, you are very good, not just at your art, but at that relationship and being motivational. Because when I met with you, I was quite lost.
Mm.
I had just left, I was at that point where I had just left product development because I no longer was finding joy in it, and
Mm.
it was becoming hard. And I don't, it was becoming, yeah, just not good for me or my family. And I had the opportunity to start my own business. I just didn't know where to go. And at that point, you inspired me to just keep going and keep trying. And I use it every day. I mean, right now I'm sitting in this beautiful studio from a woman that I met through a mutual friend doing real estate photography. And we met in instantaneously, we're like, yeah, this is going to work. We're going to work together. And I was in tears when I met her. It was just like, and I was crying after I met her. I mean, she is giving me such a huge chance just to be here and take photos. And I want to, in turn, give her, she's an amazing designer. She does all interior design, and she's just awesome. And I want to try to help her, and we're working together. And it's just like, it all feels like it's falling into place, and it's never felt that way. And if I didn't keep pushing and keep rolling, I would have never come here. And that's why I I had to have my company named after a cardinal. Whatever it landed to be was that, but cardinals for me have always signified um my loved ones and my relationships and my goings in life. And I always knew that things were meant, or that something was going to come when I'd see one. And I know a lot of people have symbolisms with cardinals, but that was my like, all right, you got to keep going. And when I felt down, I'd look out my window, and we have one we actually named in my family. COVID has done a lot for us, but we want to look out the windows a little bit more now. And we have a cardinal that comes and visits us, and I saw a cardinal before I came here, and it's just it's overwhelmingly wonderful in such a hard time, I think. So I'm I'm excited to see where everything grows and goes to,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm really excited for the relationships that I'm developing, and I don't feel lonely anymore, which is really good. I felt lonely,
Yeah.
and it just feels like now there's like a family.
Yeah. And did if we can go into that just a little bit, what do
Sure.
you think that loneliness was about?
You know, I think that I wasn't using art, you know, and I wasn't doing it for what my heart needed. I was creating product was fun and interesting, but it wasn't using what I felt. It was like getting further and further away from where I started. And I wanted an art community. And I think the only time I ever really felt that I was in college, surrounded by artists. And, you know, like minds is very difficult to find. I was surrounded by business, you know, and I I can be a business person and an art person, which is rare. I think you're the same way. It's like two different minds. But um I think I was quite lonely in that. I think that it made me sad. Like that, you know, it just no longer felt like I was tapping into that. And so then being by myself and doing my business, it was, you know, being at other houses and starting the real estate photography, I started to feel like, wow, I could write a book with all the stories and houses that I've been to. This is crazy. And then what rolled out to be this felt more like it was touching my heart, like for myself. And that was good. It wasn't just like, okay, I need the next paycheck. It was like, wow, this can really happen. This is a dream that can really happen. I didn't think it was ever this. I literally dreamt of this place. I know it's not mine, but I'm sitting in it,
Yeah.
and I'm here, and I never thought it could happen. So when I cried, it was just pure joy, and I don't think I've ever cried out of pure joy
Oh,
except when I had my babies.
yeah.
Um but and got married, you know, those big moments. But
Yeah.
this one was like, I never thought that making a living could be pure joy.
Well, it's really interesting that
So
you talked about crying out of pure joy in at your wedding, and then with the birth of your kids, and then back to, art and
yeah,
relationship. I mean, those are all, they're
yeah,
linked, right? Because they're
yeah,
relationships, and they're
yeah,
our stories. Like when you have that child and you hold that child for the first time, it's like a feeling you've never experienced before,
uh
right? and
yes,
and there's
oh
just so much hope and promise and a new relationship with somebody that's actually a part of you. It's crazy,
yeah,
right? and then
it's
art
mind-blowing.
and then art is kind of, it can have a similar thing with people where you're connected through, like I see you connecting, like the visual is the output, but it's
Yes,
about story and relationship, because you're capturing
yes,
moments of a story, whether it's a house or a
yes,
person or people.
yes, yes, yeah. It that relationship piece is, you know, probably 50% of the joy that I have from it. It's like a
Yeah.
50-50.
Yeah.
You know, creating that part of it is special to me. And it's not just to get a good picture. It's it's the part of it. It's the process. It's the human relation. It's the art. All of it is art,
Yeah.
from hello to goodbye to any minute, and then finally giving them their pictures. And I will ask them, how do you like them, and there's a lot of photographers, it's like, here's your pictures, they know, they're confident, and here I am like, do you like them, are they good? And they're, oh, I'm crying, I love them. I've had some good things, and I'm like, oh, that made my
Yeah.
day. And I am looking for their response. I'm looking for their, did I get it? Did I
Right.
get what you were looking for? Did I get that picture of your baby, and that, just that one moment? Because you can't get that back. That minute is gone,
Yeah.
and if you catch it in that minute, like, that can be held on to forever.
Well,
So,
that's the confirmation, right? Is when somebody sees
yeah.
it and they're whatever, they're in tears over it or they're smiling. That's the
Yes.
confirmation that you've captured it, that
Yep.
your art is a tangible in that moment, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I
and
did my
that
job.
and that you served somebody out of your art, out of your giftedness.
And
That's
they're not
cool.
indifferent. They liked it. Hopefully
Mm,
they don't hate it, but
yeah. So so I think I've got like three final questions for you.
Yeah,
And
shoot. Yeah.
uh two of them are businessy, and then
Okay.
one is about advice. So the first one
Okay.
is, and I try to ask all my guests this: what what would you say is your revenue stream? Like, do you have like multiple revenue streams where you're doing a bunch of different things, or is it pretty much like photography, and then you just say that you're doing portraits and you're doing houses, and how would you break it down?
Oh,
Are you
that one's
doing
kind of
any
tricky for
product
me.
development anymore? Or are you?
No, no, I'm
Yeah,
not working on product development anymore, but I am doing graphic design. So I
yeah,
am still out there with doing some graphic design. I'm working with Gabby at Urban 1111 Designs. I'm doing some working with her. It's super cool because she does interiors. So I get to
yeah,
do some, like, mood boards and stuff like that for inspiration and presentation purposes. Um, and I am, still dabbling with the graphic designs, and then moving out to photography. So it's hard to say revenue wise exactly where I'm at. I think you check back in with me in a year. I
yeah.
think I'm
And by
still
that, I
kind
don't
of,
mean the financial part of it. I just mean
yeah,
the various
which
sources.
one?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm at a sitting point where I'm like, which one is going to be it? And I don't know, maybe I pull back from one thing and focus more on the other. So
yeah,
pictures and portraiture definitely is where I'm finding my heart. So I think that's probably mostly where I'm doing the revenue. And then graphic design is, 25-30% of that pulling in. So that's where I'm seeing it pan out right now, from passion, and also from things as they grow. If a family likes me and refers me, or people are updating their headshots for getting a job, or those sorts of things that are going on right now, and then I'll get a lot of calls. Oh, hey, Linda told me to give you a call, and it's like, great, so that's kind of the word of mouth is where that's been growing, that part of the business. So it's really neat to kind of see who's satisfied, and where it goes from there. And trying to keep up on social media, I'm not the best, but I
oh
try.
yeah, that's a whole other job, isn't it? All right.
I say, if I had enough money, I'd pay somebody to do this, but I don't have. So
Yeah,
maybe I'm going to call it future goals.
yeah, that's a definite future goal, because a lot of people, that's
Yes.
what they end up doing, right? Um,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and so then my next question for you was going to be, how do you make the business part work with your creative? You had mentioned earlier that you're cool with the business part of it, and you've kind of figured it out, and I've done that too. But for the artists listening who are maybe like, uh I don't get that part of it. Like how did it come naturally to you, or did you just kind of embrace it and go with it?
You know, I think it comes from a family of entrepreneurs. My
Hmm.
parents started their own business in real estate. So just growing up with that, my family has always been, my sister's an escrow officer and owns her own business in California. My brother owns his own pet store, and I'm, doing my job. So we all are very, you know, outside of the box thinkers, and I think none of us are good to have a boss. So I think we're probably better in keeping, our heads there. So I think the business part may have come a bit more naturally, but also watching people succeed. I think keeping your thumb on what's working, if you following trends, seeing what's working out there in the world and trying to, if you struggle with the business aspect of it, um, it's also obviously, we talked a lot about relationships, but it's customer satisfaction. You really have to be oriented with being flexible. So just like you would in any art class where you're getting critiqued and people are just nailing your paintings against the wall and telling you that you're awful, you have to be able to take those blows. Someone's not going to like it, or they're going to want it changed, or they're going to want it tweaked, and you can't take that as an insult. I've seen a lot of artists that will be like, well, I'm right, you're wrong. That doesn't work in business. It doesn't. I think you have to surrender some of those feelings, a lot of those feelings. And I mean, you can stick up for yourself, but I think that your client is who you're trying to please when it comes to that. Go ahead and paint pictures, do whatever you want for yourself and be right. But for business, you have to be more open and flexible to change. And it can be insulting, I think, for artists because it's a piece of us. It, it's what makes us. It's not just like I love to do marketing and I'm a marketer. You know what I mean? Like it's art. I think there's a sensitivity and personality and the way that your brain works. And so yeah, I'd say for anybody working in business, you have to not undervalue who you are. So that's something I'm struggling with. Um, I tend to think I'm not that good, so I'll charge less. But that's not true. We struggle with this idea of what's my goal, right? I'm never going to meet that goal up here, but I'm always striving to become the best that I can. But my value shouldn't be what that goal is. My value is truly what I'm providing. And so I think when you emerge and you get into things, you set your prices accordingly, but you build that. You don't just say, hey, $50 and I'll do an entire family shoot for you because I'm a terrible artist. No, you're not. You gotta, and I'm learning that. I have very good friends that are teaching me those lessons right now. So that's a self-esteem issue for myself. I have to build that up. And so don't undervalue and be open. I think those are my two best advice. And don't fight with the client. Just make sure they're happy because they'll appreciate that too.
Yeah,
And
that's part of
that will keep
service,
returns.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's customer service. If you're working with people, you have to have that.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's
I
wild. I
think
know
those
when
are
I
the
go
best.
in to work with a client who it may not be, it may be a newer client. I'll go in with some preconceived ideas, but I try not to be married to them because I don't know the whole story. It's like I'm trying to figure out
Right.
what is it that they want? Is what
Yes.
they want what they need? And
Right.
if I think from my expertise and experience that what they're asking for isn't what they need, I will present
Mhm.
that to them. And if they still want what they've
Mhm.
asked for, okay, I'll give you what you
Then
want.
you
There
give
you
it to them.
go. Yeah,
Yeah.
so be it.
Yeah. And that's funny you say that. That is 100% true. I think that's your job as an expert in this field
Hmm.
is to to be open, get what they want,
Yeah.
and then offer more
Yeah.
and say, but wait, I mean, if they're right on par with you, that would be a first, because 9 times out of 10,
Yeah.
they're not. That's why they're hiring you. So, you have to guide them and be confident in that. I've had so many people say, could you just take it from that angle? And I'll go, sure. The beauty of digital photography, I can delete it. And I can't tell you, 9.9 times out of 10, they go, oh, never mind. I hate it.
Yeah.
Never mind. I'll just let you do your job.
Yeah.
So I think the part of being a good business person is saying, yes, I will take it from that angle,
Yeah.
and not saying, no, that's a bad angle.
Yeah.
You have to just say, okay, and let them see it for themselves.
So, you've given some great advice to creatives out there for business. Is there anything else, like, is there anything that bubbles to the top of your mind just around
Oh,
advice
yes.
that you would give? Yeah, anybody who's wanting to do either what you're doing with photography and people or houses, or they're just like, okay, what should I do? I want to make a living from my creative skill set.
I think that you have to take risks. And
Hmm.
the risk is absolutely putting yourself out there. And that is what bubbles up to the top. Um, that is 100% why I'm sitting here. It's 100% where I would have never said, sure, I can do real estate photography, and just gone out and bought everything and just did it. I would have never said, sure, I can photograph your family. And that is a risk. I was like, I think I can do this. I'm going to do my best, And I think that if you don't, you really have to dig deep to get that courage. And sometimes there's people like you, or my friend Gabby, who's sitting right over here, that you meet along the way, that will push you on that path. So my biggest advice is to take a risk and keep your eyes open, because there's always signs of where you should be going. Even though you may not think that there is, it may be right in your face, but you have no idea. And so you just have to, like, really take in each moment to say, that is what I learned, or this is where I'm going, whether it's good or bad. I mean, separating from companies that I have in the past, I cried for days, weeks. I still have bad dreams about it. I do not like confrontation or negativity. And that was a huge leap. And I've learned over time that I can't control what other people do. I can only control how I see it. So I had to turn back and look at that moment and say, this is good. This is good. And just try to take it and take the negative and turn it into good. And then open up for whatever direction you can go in. So don't stick yourself in a corner and be like, I'm going to be a graphic designer, I'm going to be this certain person, and then feel like a failure because you didn't make it. That's just, no. And even when you feel like a failure, you keep going. I literally have a note that said, you failed. I have one, I kept it. And but I didn't. I mean, there's you just push past it all, and you just like life, it's life. So that's my advice. It's a long-winded advice, but that is my advice.
Yeah, I don't think it's long-winded at all. I think it's really good, and I think what you just said about that, I can relate to it in so many ways, because I feel like I've failed myself to success.
Oh,
In a lot of ways, it's like so many mistakes I've built on, and then I've gone, oh, that was the one that's gonna do me in. And then the sun comes up the
yes.
next day, and it's like, all right, I'm
Yep.
gonna run at it again. And you
Yep.
eventually, figure it out. But you've also talked in the midst of that about community, and finding community and people who can encourage you or speak into your life, whether they be friends or peers
Yes.
or coaches or whatever it is. That's so important.
100%. I think you need that. It set me on a path, and I was just like, someone tell me. And as much as you could just sit there and say, I'm telling myself wasn't saying good things.
Yeah.
I needed external, and as soon as I got them, I soaked them in like a sponge.
Yeah.
And bad or good, if they get critique me. I want to hear
Yeah.
it. I want to learn from it. And that's what, I like critique sometimes.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed critique because that's how you grow.
Yeah.
So yes, it's is it a failure?
Right.
No, it's a stone
Yeah.
up to the next level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you built yourself up. And I think that's where you're a great mentor for people to look at and to speak to, because that is where you can teach them, you know, to reflect too on that moment and say, okay, well, when you felt like you were a failure, why? And let's build from there, So I think that definitely is a good way. Have a coach, have somebody to work with you. My mother is one of my biggest fans, and she's always, oh, Emilie, everything you do is wonderful. And it's like, oh, I love you, Mom, so much. And I always joke around with her because I said, I'd pay my friend to tell me the same thing you told me, but I listened to my friend and not you. Because you're biased, but maybe listen to your parents too, because maybe they're not so biased.
Yeah.
Your father was an encourager and you took that, and now I got to listen a little bit more. So
Yeah. That's really good stuff. That's really good.
yeah.
Emilie, where can people find you?
I am currently in Urban 1111 doing studio work right now because we have 4 feet of snow outside. So doing any photography, I'm doing it in-house here, keeping it all safe with COVID. We've got, air filtration systems, spraying everything down. I masked the whole time. And so we could come here and do any portraiture or family sessions. But you can find me. I'm at scarletcardinalstudios.com. So my information is on there, and you can see some of my product development and pictures. I'm also on Instagram, same branding, and Facebook. I'm keeping up on it. I promise. I'm trying. Um, I just got done with some really awesome Valentine's minis, and I'm working up other ideas for future. So anybody can reach out to me, and I'd love to work with you.
Fantastic. I'll have all that information in the show notes too. Thank you so much for being my guest. You're
Perfect.
awesome.
Thank you, John. It was so wonderful talking to you.
Hey, Emilie, you rock. Thank you so much for being my guest this week. Thank you for sharing your story, your creative journey with myself and with my audience. And, I just want to point out that the two major takeaways I have from this episode are Emilie is just a genuine, warm, caring person. And a lot of times, I think that we might just miss that. We're so focused on our product, we're so focused on the process, we're focused on the deadline, we're focused on maybe something else that has been going on in our lives that is just distracting. We forget about our customer, we forget about a relationship. And the Emilie that you just met in the video and the interview that I just had with her is the Emilie that I've known for 10 to 15 years, I guess. And she's genuine, she's warm, she's caring, she's skilled, she's talented, and just such a great person to work with. And I think that, that is something that we should all be shooting for, is to be somebody who, when we walk into the room, hey, our art, our service might be just stellar, but the room is a little bit lighter because we walk into it. We brighten people's days. We want to be people who other people want to be around and work with, because there's enough challenges in life, right? And Emilie is just one of those people who lightens the mood and is able to provide excellent creative service and create art through relationships. So kudos to you, Emilie. We're all going to be shooting for that upside in our own particular creative services. And the other aspect that I really want to point out is Emilie, really worked for a while to find photography. She had been building skills and all of these wonderful experiences she was having in product development and working graphic design into her daily work and working some photography in. But she spent a lot of time honing her craft, and then when she was getting out of product development and moving into something new, she had so much experience under her belt that she didn't necessarily know was going to land in photography. But when she got there, she knew this was it, and everything else added up to that. And had she stopped short of photography, like say she had just said, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But had she stopped short, I think, she would have missed it. I wonder how many times there have been people out there who have been digging for that gold, and they stop a mere 3 inches away from, finding something of great value. So I think the lesson today is keep going, keep going, keep going. And, one of my favorite phrases is action brings clarity. So it's one thing to sit and think and talk about, exactly what it is you're going to do, what you're going to accomplish, but none of it actually happens until you get that shovel and you start to dig and dig and dig and do the work. And, Emilie has done that as well. So you can find Emilie on Instagram. You can find her at her website. Both of those are Cardinal House Studios. And that information is in the show notes. And I recommend that you give her a follow. And she's just such a cool person. So I'm so glad she was on the show. And for the rest of you, I hope that you have a spectacular week. I hope that you get about the business of figuring out your creative business, whatever it is. Maybe you have some contracts that you need to run by lawyers, and that's going to be your week. Maybe you've got to figure out how to work up some new technical specifications in whatever art you're creating, and you're venturing into that part of your business. Or maybe you're just learning how to sell for the first time, just to get comfortable doing that and get your prices together. Take the first step. Take the first step, okay? And the next step will come in the next step. And I would encourage you that when you start to feel like you're either foolish or you're failing, don't worry about that. Take the next step. Take the next step. We've all been there, and the people who succeed and survive are the ones who keep on going, okay? So that's my encouragement to you this week. I hope that you have great success, and I look forward to seeing you next time on The Breakthrough Creative. All right? We'll see you then. Cheers.